Today, you should start listening to Civil Disobedience, the audiobook, and annotating the book as well. Listen to the audiobook. I know that you started it with Miss Friel. And so I went ahead and put some of the second section on here for you because I know that you already have the first page, but you do need to read and annotate the whole book, really have read it thoroughly and understood it. So let's look at the second section together, and I'll listen to it with you and show you sort of the annotations that we're looking for.
This American government, what is it but a tradition, though a recent one, endeavoring to transmit itself unimpaired to posterity, but each instant losing some of its integrity? It is not the vitality and force of a single living man, for a single man can bend it to his will. It is a sort of wooden gun to the people themselves, but it is not the less necessary for this, for the people must have some complicated machinery or other, and hear its din, to satisfy that idea of government which they have. Governments show thus how successfully men can be imposed upon, even impose on themselves, for their own advantage. It is excellent, we must all allow. Yet this government never of itself furthered any enterprise, but by the alacrity with which it got out of its way. It does not keep the country free. It does not settle the West. It does not educate. The character inherent in the American people has done all that has been accomplished, and it would have done somewhat more if the government had not sometimes got.
Okay, so let's start back here. So I'm looking at this, and one of the things that I first noticed is right here where it says, the government never of itself furthered any enterprise, but by the alacrity with which it got out of its way. It does not keep the country free. It does not settle the West. It does not educate. So at first, I thought he was just criticizing the government, saying that the government isn't doing those things. But then Thoreau explains further, the character inherent in the American people has done all that has been accomplished, and it would have done somewhat more if the government had not sometimes got in its way. So really what he's trying to say here is he's just not a fan of big government. So I'm going to go and annotate that, so I could highlight this part right here. How the government not sometimes got in its way. So he's saying government sometimes in the way. So here what he's saying is that it is the American people who keep the country free, who settle the West, and who educate, not the government. I also find this sort of interesting right now that, yes, the American people are educating right now. So I'm going to add an extra little comment. Even more sense right now, since people are having to choose to seek education themselves with school closed. Schools closed. So these are the type of annotations we're looking for. And, if you don't know exactly what a word is, like alacrity, you can guess, or we can go look it up. Alacrity. Alacrity is brisk and cheerful readiness. So I can go back and say, the government never of itself furthered any enterprise, but by the quick and cheerful readiness with which it got out of its way. So he's saying that the government works best when it just gets out of the way. Government is an expedient, meaning fast at getting things done, by which men would fain succeed in letting one another alone. So this is enough annotations for this page. Listen to a little bit more.
In its way. For government is an expedient, by which men would fain succeed in letting one another alone. And as it has been said, when it is most expedient, the governed are most let alone by it. Trade and commerce, if they were not made of Indian rubber, would never manage to bounce over obstacles which legislators are continually putting in their way. And if one were to judge these men wholly by the effects of their actions and not partly by their intentions, they would deserve to be classed and punished with those mischievous persons who put obstructions on the railroads. But to speak practically and as a citizen, unlike those who call...
So I'll stop there again to add some annotations. Trade and commerce, so that he just means business, would never manage to bounce over obstacles which legislators are continually putting in their way. So I'm going to put just a little thing in here. This reminds me of what President Trump was saying in the pipeline video about regulations being too cumbersome. I don't particularly agree, but somewhat see Thoreau's point. And if one were to judge these men wholly by the effects of their actions, these men, what men? The legislators? I guess the legislators. You can put a question there. Is he talking about the legislators or the businessmen here? I think the legislators, because he says they deserve to be punished. He's not a huge fan of government right now, it seems like. So I hope this helps you see kind of how I would like you to annotate, just with, some questions and comments. If you have somehow lost the paper version, you can create your own document and do it like this. But the paper version is probably easier for you too. If you want to send me photos of your annotations that you've done so far, I will give you feedback on them. Also, if you're not understanding Thoreau, there's some good Spark Notes and resources I'll send out today too. Hope that helps. Bye.